It'll take a few minutes for the YouTube channel to catch up with us, so we're just going to procrastinate for seconds or so. That's good. We'll go over this later. All right. I see most people kind of hopped on. So our goal tonight is really to hear from the community. So we're not necessarily going to, read all the chapters or, put in our 2 cents. We want to hear from everybody else. So we're kind of going to go in order. The agenda starts with the vision statement and guiding principles. We're going to discuss that first, and then we're going to go to cultural resources, then public health, and then transportation. So we're going to go through the chapters in that order.
So it's 2 hours, 4 chapters, maybe a half hour each. But if we run out of things to say, we'll just move ahead.
Right.
But we'll try to stick to that in terms of cutting it off at each chapter where necessary.
And we'd really like to focus kind of on the action items for each chapter, the goals and objectives and the action items, because the goals and objectives sort of set our vision of the future, kind of what we're looking to accomplish. And the action items are some of the possible ways we can get there. So we'd really love your input on those. Any wordsmithing you have about the document itself, please put in writing and send to us so that we can incorporate it. It's much easier to incorporate when it's in writing. So on the website, on the town website, under the comprehensive plan in the committee section, there is a button for making comments, and you just pick the chapter that you're commenting on, and then you can put your input in there and it gets sent to us. We've already received like 5 or 6 comments through that, and it's very, very helpful. It's much easier to have it in writing. So that's a great way to get us your information and comments.
And name is important.
It's all in the form when you go and submit.
Name's important just because we want to have a singularity, that you've only filled it out once instead of multiple times,
I mean, you can make multiple comments on the chapters and stuff, and multiple chapters and all that, but it's definitely helpful so that if we have questions and need clarification, we can email you and ask for clarification on whatever your comment was. So throw that one out there. All right, so we're going to start with chapter 1, which is the vision statement and the guiding principles.
Anyone on Zoom, just raise your hand. Would like to comment.
And if you haven't gotten a chance to read the documents, they are on the town website under committees, comprehensive plan. All the documents are there along with the button to submit comments. So if for some reason you come up with you don't have something prepared right now, you can always submit it. And we meet again on Monday next week. So we'll do a little overview of what we received and then move on to the next chapter. So the guiding principles that we have set here, Stephen Jacobs.
Hi, I submitted a written comment, but only very recently. I don't know if you've gotten it already in writing, whether I should bother summarizing it, but I think it's fair to say it's more than wordsmithing. It gets to the notion, and I think it's towards the end of the vision statement, about balancing various needs. And my concerns there are, while I fully support the goals that are stated for maintaining a vibrant year-round community and also for providing additional opportunities for people with roots here to find housing and employment, it seems to me that those goals should not be at the expense or at the prejudice of protecting the aquifer and the bays, because we all now and in the future are going to depend on those precious resources. Now, I'm not saying there necessarily is going to be a conflict between the two, but there is a statement in there that I've personally found problematic about, quote, the need to balance the protection of natural and cultural resources with the accommodation of growth and economic opportunities. And it seems to me—
Chapter by chapter, and they said that they're not, yeah, they're going to open it to the public, so they're not.
Thank you.
Stephen, I actually appreciate what you're saying here. And you get the gist of what that's saying. And I understand how you would like to shift it a little bit. So how would you shift it if you had to just state what you believe in the way you believe it should be stated? Not to put you on the spot. To put you on.
I could send you something, but talk about just those goals, just saying consistent with the or without prejudice to, or some, that sounds too lawyerly. But I mean, I think there's language there, and maybe it's really not a substantive disagreement, but it just seemed to me that the way it was worded could be misconstrued.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. I'm just going to make a note right here. Okay. Yep.
That's it.
I mean, and if anyone disagrees with that, please speak up. This should be a discussion here about, to try to get at what the community really is looking for.
Steve?
Yeah.
Could you possibly, what paragraph were you actually talking about, referring to, so we can look at it and see which one you changed? Maybe I missed that.
I think it was bullet point 3 at the end of the vision statement, which I printed, but I don't unfortunately have it right in front of me.
That's what it is. Number 3, under guiding principles, maintaining a vibrant year-round island community.
It was, I think, the second or third sentence in there is what concerned me.
Yep.
And particularly coming after the first point, talking about stewardship, obviously reflects concern about the natural resources that I think we are all concerned about.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Nice opening, Mr. Jacobs. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay. Anyone else on vision statement? Because if we save a little time here, maybe we have more time for the meatier chapters that we want to cover tonight.
So we can, right?
Yeah. This is vision we're doing, right?
So your vision, right?
Great.
We can submit things later.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
I would just say that in point 1, something like we should be, what's unique about Shelter Island as compared to Sag Harbor is the non-dense nature of it. I don't know what the technical phrase of that is.
Lower density.
Low density.
You could introduce yourself, just say your name.
Bill Darrow, Derrough.
Thank you.
And can everybody hear Mr. Darrow? Are microphones getting to Zoom? Anybody on Zoom, can you tell me? Ben?
Yeah, I can hear.
You can hear. Thank you,
Great.
Stephen.
Okay, go ahead.
He's coming through loud and clear.
Okay, great.
Good.
That's awesome.
The microphones are all on the
They're all
table.
up here, these little frisbee looking things, little spaceships. Yeah.
When I'm on Zoom, I can't.
So under exercise responsible stewardship, Mr. Darrow, that's where you'd like to see some mention made of lower density?
I thought it, sorry. Yes, point 1. If I
Okay. Right. And if I'm interpreting your statement, it is to maintain the lower density?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Maintain.
I wrote open space and non-dense, so
Okay.
preservation of open space.
No, we're a little
Thank
bit
you.
higher density up here in the center. So
Yeah, it does kind of fluctuate from place to place.
Yeah.
Like the Heights is a much higher density than even the center of the island as
Yeah.
opposed to some of the communities around. So it fluctuates. But as a whole, yeah,
Yeah.
we're less dense than SAG or, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's how Sag Harbor got to be dense. It evolved over time. I mean, it was historically dense.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
I'm a little late to the party and I apologize for that.
that's okay.
And I just want a context. Are you working off of the old comprehensive plan or is this a brand new plan?
This is the new chapters of the plan that we've been working on. So
Chapters in the old plan or new chapters?
new. Yeah, we're not talking about 94's plan. This is these are the new chapters for the new plan.
Okay. So the old plan has been discarded or?
No, the old plan is still in,
It's informing the creation of
it's
the
still
new.
the active plan until a new plan is established and approved and implemented. So we're still working as a town, working off of the 94 plan
Okay, thank you.
until a new one is complete and voted on and approved, and
Adopted.
it's now the new plan. So that's where we're at. We're still in 94.
We did though review previous plans, including the others that were put together but not previously adopted. And
Yeah.
looked at current data and information to help inform what we've put together here. Yeah, absolutely. Please keep asking questions though.
Yeah, we looked at the 2008 draft as well. So we looked at 94, then in 2008, there was another draft that never got adopted. And we looked at that one as well and took that into account with the new chapters and the new action items and things like that. So hopefully it's all incorporated.
I got the context. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay, so anybody with vision?
Anyone else have comments on the vision statement or the guiding principles? And you can always submit comments later.
Yeah.
All right, the second chapter is historic and cultural resources, chapter 2.
So there's basically 3 action points, action items at the end. Do you all want to start with the goals and objectives of this chapter?
Yeah, let's do that.
Which is, I don't know if you have your copy, or for those of you at home. It's online, it's towards the end of the chapter. How about I just read it?
Yes.
I'm just going to read it. Goals and objectives of historic and cultural resource chapter. A basic goal is the preservation of archaeological and cultural resources in order to protect the linkages between the town's history and its present life, to improve community self-understanding, to strengthen the sense of community, and to protect Shelter Island's special character, unique identity. A further goal is the protection of the island's small way of life, its rural character and natural resources. This requires continued matching of land use with the land's natural visual qualities and protection of critical visual assets, including scenic views from roads and coastal view corridors.
Sorry, where were we?
Goals and objectives, it's essentially the front of the last page. Sorry.
Okay, so if anybody has any thoughts or ideas about the action items that those goals would engender, or the rest of the chapter?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is this the action items? I don't have the page open to me right now. Is this the action item that creates new, it appears to be zoning districts for historical places?
So, yeah, one of the items is, so action item, I'll go through the action items since you don't have them in front of you. The first one is to activate chapter 77 of the town code, which creates a historical advisory commission of 5 members. that would help recognize the importance of historic, cultural, and architectural resources. And their job would be in an educational capacity. And then they would also kind of work with the Historical Society. So that's the first action item, sort of summarized. The second one is to explore the possibility of creating a Zone H for the Heights National Historic District, and possibly a floating historic zone for other appropriate areas of the island. So it's just throwing the concept out there of looking into it as a possibility. This document itself doesn't create code or create new zoning laws. It's just making recommendations on looking into possible historic zoning districts for areas.
Well, I would never object to looking into something, but.
Kim, I just want to interrupt for just a quick second. Could you just identify yourself with other people on YouTube to know who you are? Thank you.
Oh, so my name doesn't appear on the screen. It's Kim Noland.
Thank you.
So, you know, as I said, looking into something is always a good idea, especially when you're trying to preserve cultural and historic resources. However, if this is referring to new zoning districts, I'm wondering if it really belongs in this spot. But let's just say that it does refer to new zoning districts, and it does belong in this spot. I'm not commenting on the idea of activating that sort of thing. I think you were specific about the Heights. You had a very specific proposition for the Heights and some specific comments. I'm talking about creating these floating historic zones across the island because it seems really amorphous, and without providing that the designation or addition of a historic H zone to an area or a building or a property shall not change or downzone the rules already applicable in the particular zoning district, I think can lead to perhaps a lack of understanding of what the comprehensive plan is really saying. In other words, it creates ambiguity about this zoning concept. Therefore, I would propose that you add language that says that floating H zones at such time as they are considered and decided will not change, supersede, or downzone in the zoning district, and nor shall they permit changes of use in the particular property, area, or building.
May I speak? I certainly think you're absolutely right. And Kim, I think it's very ambiguous and not specified. And I know for one thing that I've looked at recently, just in the last few days, the Southold Code, they have some sort of historic preservation zone that they put on, they overlay on specific places where they feel there are dangers. This is very unclear as to what they're talking about here. And I would suggest that one thing, in addition to pulling back from thinking about a direct zoning change here, I think we want to really make this a committee, a historical advisory commission purview that they explore. So rather than item 2, I think 2 and A both should be items to be explored by the Historical Advisory Commission, which is outlined in Chapter 77, rather than say anything very specific about it.
Well, Lily, I very much appreciate your comments. And what I really think should happen here is that instead of the comprehensive plan authorizing the possibility of a historic H zone in areas other than the Heights, where you do have very specific directional representations to those residents. I think you should either omit this altogether from the code, or you should basically say that it won't have the effect of changing any zoning. I mean, it really has to be spelled out, because the comprehensive plan is the piece of work that courts look to when they make zoning changes. And what the comprehensive plan says can unintentionally authorize all sorts of things if it's ambiguous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a comment on your website that is quite specific and does include language. And I'm also going to follow up with, I think, the very good comments that Lily made, so that this just doesn't turn into something that happened to get in the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Kim. That would be great.
Good, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Bill Darrow. So it's not clear to me what 2 is supposed to be solving for. So I see a bunch of stuff before of things that people are concerned about. But what's the objective?
So
but it just needs to say it.
Yeah. Right.
It doesn't say it. So objective is to make sure that things that are outside of a national historic district, which I assume a certain location.
No, it doesn't. There is none.
There are no restrictions.
There are no restrictions in
Okay,
there.
So that was the concern that was brought to us by Stella, is that, there's a lot of construction and renovation. And so you start to lose the character of some of these older homes. And so she brought up the concept of a floating or just an H zone for the historic district of the Heights that could help maybe restrict the types of renovations, or so that people don't just tear down these homes and put up whatever they want. So it's really just, it stemmed from the Heights.
So if you're going to have something, you should explain what you're trying to. I know it sort of says it earlier, but for this specific thing, you should say what you're trying to. I'm from the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. We've got some very beautiful old Victorian homes there, which I don't think. Yeah. But you're going to have other people. But the category will say it's my property and there's nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a whole separate takings clause issue you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
Somebody's really talking about an architectural review board.
For the Heights.
So
Yes.
That they explore that possibility. This could include, yes.
yeah, it could. It's, so like sort of the sub point under that is, in the Heights, this could include appointing an architectural preservation review committee to consult and review proposed changes, modifications, demolitions, and new constructions in the historic district.
May I say that there is such a committee within the Heights that now exists. I think one of the problems, if I may speak for the Heights, or something Stella might add, is that when these issues come up in front of the town zoning, they don't seem to carry any weight. So maybe there is a thought that there could be more of a sense of sign off, so that given a lot of the 1880s characteristics of the lower Heights, let's stick to the lower Heights, there are all sorts of setbacks and rules that do not apply in the town zoning. And so the Heights finds itself forced to deal with a very different system. So I think they do have architectural review, but they'd like to have a little more consideration from the town itself.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Karen Kerr. I have 2 comments. One, certainly the Heights is beautiful, and I like how they phrase that, but there are other historic houses around the island.
Yes.
So where is that going to be addressed? So some of them are 18th century houses.
Right.
And certainly, I think everybody in this room would agree, we hate to see them defaced or torn down because of the rights, legitimate and legal, of the property owners.
Right.
And I'm familiar with most of those houses. So I don't know if that's going to be included here or addressed.
Yeah, that concept was thought about in the floating historic or H zone that you could apply to make it property specific. So some of this whole thing is very conceptual. this requires like a true exploration of zoning code. It requires looking into the legal aspects of changing zoning. Like there's a lot that has to happen before this becomes anything even close to.
Was anybody considering an architectural review?
May I,
Island-wide, no.
I think we're all aware that recently an old house was torn down and there was pro and con about the fact that there was nothing that could be, no tools to address such a possibility. And I'm just saying that having recently looked through the Southold 2020 code, and they have some tools that they can use. For example, their floating whatever they use, district or something that they can place in a very small area was used to promote the adaptive reuse of two consolidating church buildings that people felt needed protection because they would simply be torn down and not readaptively reused. So there are possibilities that can be explored. As Meg has pointed out, this is suggestive and conceptual, and the actual work would be the work of a commission and the input from the public.
Thank you, Lily. No, I'm sort of late to the game and party here, so thank you. My other comment and question is, I see you don't have the Presbyterian Historic Cemetery on.
The most important
And just everybody is to 1840. Records that we have around prior to 1840.
Okay.
And I don't see any reference as a cultural historic site regarding that cemetery. Because everybody knows we dying patriots in there. I know Lily knows. We served in Washington, Congress. I'm the go-to cemetery person, so I'm speaking up to protect.
Very important.
myself.
Yeah.
May I ask you to just write up a little
for us.
paragraph about that so that we can incorporate it? I just want to have that information accurate, and
Who should I send it to?
you can send it to me, Meg Larson at Shelter Island Town, or there's a comment button on the comprehensive plan webpage and you can include it there. So either way, I'll make sure it gets put in. That is a great piece of information.
Thank you, Sarah.
Jan?
Jan Sudo. So could you, in round both members here, kind of restate that the intention of some age or historical plan was not to replace the existing zoning, whatever it is. It's just an overlay. Could that be stated clearly?
I think it should be. And I think that, I think Kim Bonstrom is going to further that idea.
Yeah,
You know, with her specificity.
Nolan.
I'm sorry, Kim. Sorry, Kim.
Yeah.
Okay, and possibly floating historic age zone for other appropriate areas of the, that really needs to be spelled out. What areas and restricted to that, because otherwise this gives a blank check to naming any town, any house anywhere at any time historic, and therefore
Right.
Good, that's good.
Good point.
So the intention was not to loosen the requirements of various code zones, AA, single A,
No.
C, and so forth.
Actually makes it
It's
harder.
like overlay.
It's an overlay that's like, the way I was understanding it when we were discussing it is that it's an overlay that would trigger an extra level of review.
Okay.
That's pretty much how I was understanding it.
That's fine, but it's just not.
It's not clear. So we'll try to make that clearer so it reads that way. Because when we were all discussing it as a group, that was kind of my understanding, is that it triggered an extra level of review, really looks at it harder than your basic zoning. Because pretty much every building in the Heights has to go to the zoning board. So it would kind of add another layer to that because their setbacks are so tight.
Can I comment on on point 3?
Yes.
Isn't that what the Botanic Land Trust is doing now? So doesn't that already exist?
Kathy, can you just identify yourself for the cameras?
Oh, I'm sorry, Kathleen Gooding.
Thank you.
So I'm just, maybe we should say encourage programs for preservation. Because some of them exist.
I think she's saying encourage programs for preservation.
Consider encouraging programs?
Yeah, yeah, and instead of consider, encourage.
Yes, yes.
That's good.
Oh, right, yeah, where it's the easement. Okay,
Yeah,
yes.
great. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a comment on this chapter?
I do, just really quick before we leave,
Yes.
John Kerr, first page, second paragraph, second to last sentence. I think somehow in our original document, we had the word indentured servants, and for some reason it got lost. So enslaved Africans and remove other indentured servants.
Okay.
They weren't servants, servants are paid, indentured servants are working off a fee or something. So that's the correct word there.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you, John.
Does anybody else have a comment on history and culture?
I would just like to also offer a little bit more information could maybe be included about Taylor's Island. It's very sparse. I could draft some things and send it to you if you'd like.
That would be great. And you can submit it through the comment button or you can email me directly. Either is fine. Yeah, I feel like it used to be longer and somehow we might have lost something in there. So
I think so.
We've had some formatting issues, so please provide more information and I'll fill it in. I'm going to move on to chapter 8, which is Public Health and Human Services. So I'm going to read the goals and objectives first for this chapter. So goals and objectives, first one is to maintain a strong self-seating volunteer floor of ambulance and fire department members. 2 is continue tick-borne disease monitoring and reduction. 3 is senior services should be sustained and expanded as the increasing number of part-time residents become full-time retirees. And 4, early childhood services or adolescent services, both medical and social, should be explored. And then for action items, they get quite extensive. So anybody has a comment, let me know. Give you a moment to look it over. So the first action item we have is to develop an annual volunteer opportunity day, perhaps in conjunction with the craft fair and the Green Expo, to try to, encourage volunteers, maybe recruit some of the younger kids from the high school, get them interested and involved, things like that. Create a junior corps for both the fire department and the ambulance, trying to create interest and keep it sustainable. Civics. Yeah, exactly. Number 2 on the list is to reduce the number of tick-borne illnesses on Shelter Island. And then it lists the strategies recommended by the Deer and Tick Committee so that we continue to follow through with those actions. Senior services is item number 3, and then sustaining the services that we currently have and exploring or instituting as needed other items such as caregiver support, adult daycare, and expanded recreation uses, department uses in the library, coordinating activities with the 2, with seniors and children and adolescents, and kind of trying to bolster some of those programs. And then number 4 is early childhood services for children and their families. So trying to boost some of the early childhood programs on the island. And then item number 5 that came up was somehow look to address food insecurity on the island. It is a consistent concern for many islanders. And we do have organizations that help with that, such as the food pantry at the Presbyterian Church, Meals on Wheels, the students' lunch program at the school. There's also a program at the senior center, and the cast truck comes and it's a mobile food pantry that serves quite a few of the families on the island. So just kind of brainstorming some possible solutions. So those are some of the things that we came up with. But I'd love to hear more suggestions or tweaks. Yes.
So I'm on the board of Boy Scouts in New York City.
Mhm.
We have a very active Explorer program, mostly police, but not only police. There's a Marine Patrol program as well. So you say Junior Corps, you might want to think about reaching out to the Suffolk County Boy Scouts.
Okay.
There's Explorer program.
Okay, great.
Even if they're not scouts on Shelter Island,
Right.
you might get some from Greenport, Southold, SAG, who would like the opportunity to, to do something.
Do you need a Cub Scout program to feed into an Explorer program? I mean, how does that work? No. Oh, good.
No, Explorer program, well, some on the board doesn't know everything.
So you'll know more than us.
Yes.
You don't need to be a Cub Scout to be a Boy Scout.
Right.
Explorers typically are 14 or 15 years old or something like that, 16, something like that. So I can't remember the numbers, but I'd say like something like 10 to 15% of the entire scouting membership in New York City, probably that actually is Explorer, mostly police.
Okay, very cool. That's a great idea. Yeah, we used to have Boy Scouts.
We did. I figured out.
We have a Boy Scout troop in the North Day Parade.
We did not this year, no, because we don't have Boy Scouts this year. The Little League kids marched instead. In lieu of Boy Scouts. Stephen Jacobs?
Hi, I haven't gotten through all this chapter, but I did notice on the first page, the data on substance abuse is only through 2020. And I would urge that be updated. And I think the update may present a somewhat more disturbing story than is currently presented.
Will do, thank you. I was wondering if I thought we had updated information.
Yeah, we have 2021 in there in a chart,
So we'll
Stephen.
update that.
But we can, bring that forward to the paragraph that you're citing.
Okay,
Yeah, sure.
I'm probably didn't get to that. By the way, Meg had mentioned something about formatting issues, but some of the charts, and I could follow up online, didn't come out well, at least when I tried to print them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to solve that. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's been a glitch. All right.
I have one question.
Yes.
Julia Brenner, is that the goals and objectives in this area seem to speak to volunteer activities rather than to developing the capacity for additional paid workforce in this area,
Really good point.
including police,
Yep.
fire, and ambulance. We're already on our way with ambulance, we are not far to fire, and certainly the police department expects to need more money. And I wondered if that was just, you were thinking about volunteers and you weren't thinking about that as kind of a.
Yep, we're gonna have to expand.
Well,
Maybe it is in the comprehensive plan.
Well, yeah, my view is if you run out of volunteers, you have to hire people.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, I'm not sure,
I do think we need to
Yeah.
include it though, because if we're looking towards the future,
Yeah.
this is a very viable and possible end.
Right.
If we can't maintain the volunteer
Okay.
corps, we're going to be paying for it. And it's gonna be expensive. So I
Yeah.
think it needs to be accounted for.
And on the other side of the coin, also as job opportunities to bolster the.
Yep. Yeah.
I think that would always need to be supported by data, right?
course.
Because
Yes.
you need to make sure that you're looking at what are the crime statistics, et cetera, in order to support that workforce.
Okay, and I was
Yeah.
more talking about.
More about fire and EMS.
I know this is something.
So paid members went in if necessary.
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah,
a-
paid services for fire and EMS. Because we're already, this year we had to pay for an EMS person. Yes.
I've been in some of the firehouse, but I've never.
Bill Darrow?
I've never check this out. Is there actually sleeping quarters?
Not currently. There could be.
That's what happens in New York City fire departments, right? The
Yeah.
firefighters come and spend the night there if they're on shift. They come back to Long Island. I'm not saying that's what we want to go to, but that's probably something to think about. To your point, Meg, about
Right.
kind of the long term.
Yeah, if we had to go towards a paid fire department, then that would definitely be a direction we'd have to go in. The fact that everybody's volunteer and lives on the island means that we don't have to necessarily provide those accommodations, but it's absolutely something that we would have to do.
Fire. And I think there's also technology that you can look at too, in terms of how can volunteers be more responsive, et cetera, right? So I think it's looking at the workforce, it's looking at improved processes.
There's probably some algorithm that send a message out.
Right. And maybe we won't need the siren anymore.
You know, you'll always
everybody's safe.
No, you'll always.
That would be nice. That would be amazing.
Sort of.
Think of how rich the profits would have to be to encourage somebody to commute out. You know, they have to, bypass all those towns on, where are they coming from? Selden? Bypass all those towns to come out to a firefighting job out here, and deal with the ferry lines and all of that. Just wonder what that number is.
It's not ideal, but it's something to kind of plan for the possibility.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Good point. Yeah, we do get to look towards that. Plan for contingencies. Right. Anybody else have comments on health and human services? Let's see.
That's great.
Once again, I'm just going to reiterate, if you do come up with something that you want to submit later, please do. There's a button on the comprehensive plan page on the website where you can submit any comments. You just select the chapter you want to comment on and write it in. And we get it all in this big Excel spreadsheet so we can keep it organized and neat and tidy. So that's really helpful.
What page is that on the website?
If you go to committees and then it's comprehensive plan, and it'll be right in the middle.
Thank you.
No problem. And there are business cards on the back table that have the website on it, and it has a QR code that you can scan if you're looking on your phone. So grab a business card on the way out, and that'll have all the information for you.
Also, Karen, and for everyone else, we do hope to have a button up on the main page of the website that will bring you directly to the comprehensive plan page.
We just need to choose which button we're going to move somewhere else first.
We have to lose something.
Specific number of buttons. Yes,
So
Bill.
I have a question that's not related to this chapter. I apologize for either going backwards tonight or some other night. But I just said, have you noticed how many rabbits are out this year?
Crazy.
And that tells me we have a fox problem, right?
Yeah, so
My question is there a section, or maybe we suggest in the cultural part, that is an action item to study the kind of wildlife balance and imbalance?
That's a very
So the
good
fox
point.
cycle is something that's been going on forever. It's about, I think it sort of shakes out to every 7 years. So what happens with the fox population, foxes are pretty territorial. They kind of maintain their own space. When they start to overlap too much, then you end up with mange, and mange spreads kind of through the population. So then the population dwindles, but then they sort of come back over time, and then it's that same cycle. And then they end up with mange again, population dwindles, but then they come back. So we're kind of in a lull at the moment. They were doing very well a few years ago. You saw them everywhere. And then their territories overlap, they spread disease, they dwindle, and then they come back. It's kind of a natural cycle for them on the island.
But should we have some kind of a study around?
When we get to natural resources.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good addition.
Yeah, there are obviously chapters that we're not covering tonight. There will be,
I
there will
think
be
there's a place
subsequent
for
meetings
that.
that you can go on to, again, the comprehensive plan. And
Already
look at that.
ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, you can absolutely put comments for what we're going to be working on. So that way it's already in there when we get going.
I missed
Yeah, no, they're beautiful.
All
So
kind of
beautiful.
repeats and timing and.
Chickens don't, but.
And they're easier on the garden.
Yeah.
That's true.
Than the rabbits.
That's true. Okay, so does anybody else have a comment on public health, human services? No, all right, and Munson, if you come up with one, send it to us. All right, chapter 9, transportation. So I'll read the goal and objective. So the goal for transportation is simply to provide for moving people and goods to and around the island with reasonable convenience and cost, and to do so safely and without conflict with other objectives, including concerns for environmental, visual, and oral quality of the island. Oral as in hearing, like, auditory quality. So we don't want too much noise pollution, that kind of thing. So, and then there is, I believe, like 13 possible action items for this. And, we kind of included traffic in the waterways in this as well. So that waterways will be brought up again in environmental. So a lot of these chapters will have overlapping information because it works on multiple fronts. So like, for example, the possibility of an H zone for a historic district will come up again in the zoning chapter. It's something that will be thought of in multiple places. So, don't be surprised if something shows up twice because it works in both chapters and it's one island and all goes together.
So I guess my main comment on this chapter is there's nothing about parking there.
Okay.
What would you like to see?
I don't know, but
That's a good
with all those new refurbished restaurants, traffic is getting worse. It's difficult to get through the heights now because of popularity of Checkwit.
Mm-hmm.
All power to them and so forth, but
It was like that before?
no.
No, it was,
Yeah, when I worked there, it was crazy in the heights.
no,
Oh, or it was another century, but let's not go.
Yeah, but, so now we have renovated Presbyterian, we have renovated Chickwit,
Yep.
Yes.
and there's another place coming on the
Leon, yep.
Leon.
Leon,
so forth. And
I think that's
all of a
very,
sudden, there's a parking problem everywhere,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
shouldn't town think something?
Okay.
Maybe there's some solution to it.
around the Checkwood, it is so dangerous that I've seen about 3 or 4, since I live in that area, I've seen about 3 or 4 accidents just inches from happening because cars park around that whole interior circle. There is no prohibition for parking, and then cars come up the other street and can't see both cars coming up
Right.
like that. It is the most dangerous intersection right now.
Big trucks are going through there.
Nothing
on
is
the
being
ferry,
done.
Yeah.
And maybe.
Thank you for bringing it,
Yeah.
parking up.
And maybe the town should put some thought into like when allowing restaurants to expand, whatever, put some consideration of where the cars park.
Are you
Specifically in suburban areas, you read about this in Southwold too. You're gonna put a restaurant in, you need to have appropriate parking for.
That's good. Parked cars are also parking all over the heights, way into the interior streets from the Checkwood traffic.
And I
So-
think that's exacerbated because they have so many people working on the building still. So I'm hoping that calms down and kind of reverses, but I do think it's exacerbated with all the workers.
Yeah, their lot is not even
And
open.
their back parking lot is outside.
It's an issue.
Right.
We should Definitely,
Be aware
thank you.
of
I
it,
think
yeah.
that's very important.
And we're having.
Ladies first.
Yes.
Karen Cutter.
Karen, yes.
I recently got a ticket as an elder person parking more than 12 inches from the curb in the heights.
Oh,
I wasn't very happy
okay.
because while I was standing there getting my ticket, I saw all kinds of people running, racing in their cars through the walking section. And the heights there, particularly by the post office, and the Chickwood should have speed bumps. So this study should include, particularly up there in the heights, it's like, a tragedy waiting to happen. There
Yes.
should be speed bumps and more attention to the safety of that whole walkable heights area. In addition to which, maybe somebody wants to consider the town putting a traffic light in with a new Venetian restaurant facility. Because that, right now, people do not know how you go right around that four corners. And again, with a lot of the tourists here, they don't understand. I've seen so many near crashes and
Yes.
fender bumpers there that maybe you could even get the Venetians to pay for a traffic light. But once everybody starts to drink and dine there, I think that is a tragedy waiting to happen.
So, can I disagree?
Yes, not a tragedy waiting to happen.
No, we don't have a single traffic light, so
I know.
it's just so great. So if we put a traffic light, the next thing will be a bridge to Greenport.
Well, that's a leap, but maybe what would everybody think about a traffic calming? Nobody loves circles, do they? You know, like a.
I love circles. I don't think
You
people
know?
understand.
People are so confused by the circle over
Yeah.
here, right by the center. I mean,
I know.
just, I mean,
But somebody has to look into those four corners. Because it's dangerous right now.
yes.
It's dangerous.
I think maybe what I'm hearing you all saying is that to actually have an action item around both parking and traffic studies,
Yes.
right? To make sure, again, everybody jokes, I'm like
This is
data
what we
lady,
want.
but I think data is really important to understand
Yes.
for decision making. And so if we can look at that, that's.
Well, you know, that also.
Items.
What do you think about what you're saying, traffic? I was just thinking about this today.
Right.
The limiting factor here is the ferry.
Right.
Capacity. At some point, people aren't gonna wanna wait an hour, 2 hours, 4. I don't know what the number is, what the wait time will have to grow to, that people won't wanna do that will reduce the number of day trippers, which is the big traffic load, I would imagine.
Unless they.
I think the
No, I don't
ferries have gotten.
So anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not.
very much more capacity.
And so they, they could, I don't know what the rules are and how many they can run at a time, but.
There's a hand.
There's two hands, there's a few hands, yeah.
I was gonna suggest that we need to do a detailed, data-driven traffic study. Presumably, you can get data from the ferries about the number of vehicles coming on and off the island.
Yeah, we definitely have all that information already, like the number of vehicles that travel on and off the ferry.
Yeah.
And I know Jay Carr probably has information on this as well, because when he was at the highway, they did do some studies on this. And then I'm gonna, even that. Okay, Drew. Drew and then Jay.
Drew Cole at the Johnson, it kind of goes to data a little bit, but it more to the question of study. But you'll have to bear with me because it's all going to flow into the same thing. But in the goals and objective, it's just simply to provide for moving people and goods to and from the island. My suggestion is you kind of break it up, people moving and goods moving. But there's a recreational aspect to the roads right now.
Right.
And certainly since COVID, but even this year, the cyclists both were coming, from one fork to another, as well as just people who are renting, people who are here. There are more and more cyclists. That's recreational. I think that's an important word that needs to go in terms of this flow. And it goes into study because I noticed in 1994, there was language about having a study that the plan recommended a study about cycling, and it was from ferry to ferry. And my question is, was there ever a study done in preceding 28 years about bicycling and bike lanes?
You don't think
because if all it is and a concern about a plan that is just saying studies about maybe doing something is sort of thin rule at the end of the day and has no weight and effect. And so my real question is, I think there needs to be more emphasis here placed on cyclists. And I say this because I've seen what I think could be really tragic outcomes with children nearly getting hit with, and so nobody wants to be the person that does that. Nobody wants to be in a group where that happens.
Yeah.
And the cyclists, even the ones that are coming from fork to cycle, are stopping, eating, and so they're providing economic activity as well. I think that needs to be recognized, and I think it needs to be, I think part of that would be to include the word recreational.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think to be a little more emphasis on cyclists because it is just it's grown
May I say
exponentially.
something in connection with the speaker's point?
Wait,
Hold on,
no, Kim,
Hold
no, Jake's next. He's had his hand up. But also Drew and everyone else, what about the idea, because it kind of, that I hear mentioned, but I don't know about the support for it of an island-wide lower speed limit. Is that a yes?
Sure.
I mean, 30, why do we have to go faster than 30 here? I don't know. I'm just wondering if that should go into, like, in the safety study, maybe that should be included.
I think a comprehensive traffic study should
Include that.
be comprehensive.
Right.
Not just the number of vehicles, but how fast are people going? What should be recommended in consideration of cyclists? We heard something the other day, can't remember where it was, that there was a very near miss accident coming up on at the end of First Causeway, coming up that hill.
Yes.
Some family, I can't remember if the kids were on bikes or whatever, but a big truck going too fast. We could have a lot of big vehicles going fast, deliveries and all that.
That's changed. Jay, I believe you have had your hand
Yeah,
up.
two points. The first one regarding the parking, that would all get caught in the Complete Streets engineering program. So that would look at every aspect of people that use the streets, from pedestrians, bicyclists, cars, parking, the whole thing. So that's one thing that would.
That's action item.
Right, that's in there. So I know that's in there.
Looks at all of that.
Yeah, and then the second one, while I was highway superintendent, I put a request into the state to widen the shoulders on 114 from ferry to ferry. They actually sent 3 engineers out. We rode the road, pointed out all the problems, and then they went back to their van. They jumped on their bicycles and they rode it from ferry to ferry, both sides of the lanes, which I was actually impressed with. So they came out. The only thing they've done so far that I'm aware of is actually change the grates in the storm drains to make them bicycle friendly. But I think that the town's got to get back on board with the state senator and hold hold the state accountable to come out and deal with this, because it's been way too long.
Okay. In that study, Jay, didn't they come up with 3 different price caps for that? They said we can just change signage for like $1 million. We could add some pavement in other places for 2 million. And then we could do a whole bike path system for, like, I don't know, some astronomical figure they threw out at us. I know Jerry or somebody was talking about it.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Oh.
So for me, in dealing with the state, was widening the shoulders. So across from like Bob's Fish Market, that shoulder is sufficient to handle bicycle traffic. But when you get to the S turns, it goes to 2 inches between a pavement to the white line. So they need to connect all the shoulders all the way across the island. I don't know if you want to call them bike paths or you want to call them shoulder widenings, but whatever it is, they have to do something. And then on West Neck Road, I had them set the telephone poles back when they were putting in the large poles, and then the county came to pave it, and they weren't going to widen it at the time. Luckily, I happened to run into the chairman of the Suffolk County engineer group, told him what the problem is, and he said, "Oh yeah, we talked about widening that years ago." I said, "Well, it doesn't look like they're going to do it." So they actually sent a machine out and widened it. And one of the strategies in Complete Streets is to narrow the lanes. So West Neck Road is a little bit narrower than the other lanes, which forces traffic to actually drive slower, and it gives some shoulder there for pedestrians and bicycles. So there's a bunch of things that can be done to make streets safer.
Kim, I believe you were next.
No, I think Mark was next.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Sorry, Mark was next. Mark, you're muted. If you're talking, we can't hear you.
Hi, this is Mara, Mark's wife. We're nice to see you guys, and thank you for this wonderful meeting. My question, Meg, you mentioned that there's a lot of data that the town has about the ferry traffic. Is it broken down into people coming through, people visiting versus residents versus, how much detail is there in that data that the town has?
We don't collect their motivation for coming across the boat. just sheer numbers of people who come across the boat. So we don't know, if they're coming here to stay or if they're coming here for the day or if they're just cutting across. We just know how many people are coming across, and the ferries keep all that information. Yeah.
Got it. It might be interesting to find, I mean, I don't know what it would take to get that kind of breakdown, but it might be interesting to have for any variety of reasons, including, economic development.
Yeah, it's a good suggestion. I'm not sure how we'd accomplish, but.
Well, I mean, I imagine that they, when they take tickets, they have a sense of, right, who pays versus cash and, the cards and, how they pay is one way of, I guess, tracking, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
You don't know if they're coming to stay or if they're using us as a bridge. I believe there was a study done, I want to say 20 years ago, maybe longer. Like studies may be a strong word, but I think they sampled traffic on North Ferry, especially to get a handle. And they did it different days, different times, sort of a standard sampling study to get an idea of what reasons were for crossing the island. And I remember at the time, and this is such old memory, that everyone was surprised at the amount of bridge traffic, and that's a long time ago. So that's got to be a bigger number now.
We can ask Bridgeford if he has any suggestions on how to address that.
Maybe now with the newer
I
standards.
was just gonna say with the card, right?
Yeah.
There's probably ways to,
Yes.
is it a resident, first of all, how many round trips versus one ways, right?
Collect easily.
You could probably break that
You
down
can almost
somehow.
visually cite them because they're usually speeding and they
Well,
go.
I mean, it depends. Some people are just late for work.
I believe the police department also has license plate readers.
Yeah.
They may be able to give you information about cars that are departing the ferry within the next 20 minutes.
Right, like a metadata, not a.
We'll check. Yeah, that's Kim. Kim? I'm gonna go to Kim next meeting.
I have a very specific and very relatively small suggestion, which is a bike path from the four-way intersection that we were talking about along New York Avenue that goes into the Heights. And I believe this was discussed across the street from Goat Hill and along that difficult area on New York Avenue. And I think that even the Heights and the town have already talked about putting it there. And it might be a relatively easy action item that could actually get done this time. Small area, already discussed. That's all I have.
Yeah, I thought what, I don't know, Jay, maybe you remember this too. I thought the last time that this was sort of discussed and analyzed, it was that they would have to make New York Avenue one way. Otherwise lose a lot of trees in order to do that, because it's so narrow already. I'm not opposed to the one way, but I think we need to put that in here, to explore the possibility.
Yeah, because otherwise, if you go through like the park and down the frontage, we don't own all that. There are sections that it wouldn't be a continuous route. And then the other problem is some of the houses there are really right on the road. So it's very hard to expand that onto private property. So I mean, that I think was part of the complication. Jay, do you know more?
Yeah, that was the problem. When you got to the houses, you had a couple choke points in there. There's barely enough room to make something happen. So there would be no parking in front of those homes if you're going to do something. But there's in front of Ice Pond Park and the Meadow Park over there, I think there's enough room to do something there, but there's just two impossible parts there that are a problem. While I'm here, can I jump on one other thing? The police department was collecting data for a while, so they may have something that could help us. And I know the speed trailer also collects data, so they use that to analyze speeders and target enforcement and stuff.
Okay, cool.
Okay, police. Are you saying too, Jay, here that the police data would include motivations for ferry traffic, or?
Yeah, so back in the day when I was employed by there, we set the traffic counter up. So we had direction of travel and we had the size of the vehicles. So we broke them down by time of day, type of vehicles, and we had some pretty good data back then. I don't know when the last time they actually ran that would be.
Okay. All right, we'll look into getting some Something done.
Fresh data.
Some fresh data.
Yeah, I just wanted to, Jay says about complete streets, and I just Googled. That means that it doesn't seem to be super clear. So to the extent that people thought that that's gonna, on its own, cover parking and traffic and stuff like that, I think we should be very explicit that it needs to.
What is meant by complete streets, you mean, in that item?
Well,
Expand on that. You want that item
well,
expanded?
we should know what that means.
Right.
It seems like a good, generally good thing, but even one website says that they're not all the same. But to the extent that Jay thought that would encompass parking and traffic and everything else, it's not clear to me if that does. We need to be explicit that we want.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a very large manual with a bunch of design recommendations in it for different strategies, because there's no two things that are the same. So the manual, it's a large book that has a bunch of design elements in it that you would refer to and try to pick out what would be the best for our specific areas.
Well, maybe we'll get the exact title of that manual and include it so it can be a reference for the plan.
Yeah, great.
Any comments on any of the other points?
Yes.
About this. I know that bus is a 4-letter word in Shelter Island. It isn't mentioned specifically in any of the objectives. The possibility for bus.
For like a public bus service.
Bus specifically.
Number 10, I think
says
number
all
10.
forms of community-wide transportation, but it doesn't specifically say would the town be willing to look into a possible public-private partnership related to community busing.
So beyond what's done for
seniors.
number 10,
I would
expand number 10?
I would ask the committee to consider whether the word bus could actually find its way into the. Okay.
Auburn, how about van?
Electric bus, you know.
Some form of, and are you suggesting that sort of round seasonal, like, is this?
I think there's probably opportunities between what the school does and what the seniors do. And what's going to be needed to more efficiently move people. Right now, the school, before the school year ended, the police department worked with the school in the town to have a shuttle bus to pick the teachers up. Because the ferry lines were so long because of all the construction vehicles. And so that kind of thing. There might be an expansion of what's considered standard school bus or standard senior bus to maybe a little bit more community, not joining the Suffolk County Transportation. Bus but some kind of community.
Yeah,
some kind of.
And seaplanes, expanding the island's control over the offshore area from 15. We all have, are we?
Yeah.
I mean, is that all, it's in here, yeah, Mr. Swell.
Does the town has jurisdiction over
1,500 feet.
We only have jurisdiction out to 1,500 feet. Now, Sag Harbor was able to extend their jurisdiction beyond 1,500 feet, and it's a process, but we're wondering if that's something that, people would be interested in us pursuing. Because recently there have been some new and interesting proposals for things like a helipad out in the water.
Barge.
Essentially, but outside of our jurisdiction, outside of Sag Harbor's jurisdiction, even though Sag Harbor's jurisdiction extends further, do we want more control over our waterways surrounding us? So that was a concept that came up with, the helipad. So these are all
And
things that,
maybe limiting where airplanes can land, seaplanes can land.
right?
I'd like to.
Yes, Kathy?
Kathy?
Yeah, I just, two things that, yes, I would be very supportive of that. We're in Cockles Harbor and there's a person who lands weekly there, but yet the other day, it wasn't him. There was someone else that took off right over the anchorage area. And he was only inches above some of the masts of some of the boats, which was very dangerous. So that, yes, I'd be very supportive of that. Also, you should know that I'm on the Parks Commission, and we were with some of the legislators, and Suffolk County is thinking of putting in some restrictions also for seaplanes and those objects over water. So yes, I think that's a good idea and we should really consider it.
As you hear more about that specifically, can you email us?
For Suffolk County, sure.
I'm just going to go through some of the other action items that we haven't commented on, just to see if anybody has anything. So the first action item is a sidewalk study to determine how and where we can enhance walking areas. So through like the center of town, down to the IGA, from North Ferry to the four-way stop at New York Avenue and West Neck, down to Crescent Beach. These are all areas where we see potential, conflicts with walkers and drivers and bikers. So trying to see if there's a way to improve safety in those areas. Number two is a bicycle path study, looking into that. And maybe even considering having the Chamber of Commerce map contain recommended bicycle routes. So maybe some roads that are safer for bicycles than, what's currently advertised. Number three was continue to monitor helicopter, airplane, and seaplane traffic in light of the changes happening in East Hampton. Explore limiting seaplane activities in all inland waters and limiting takeoffs and landings to outside waters is another possibility. Item number four, explore increasing town control over offshore waters from 1,500 feet to a greater distance in order to better control air and water traffic using the waters surrounding Shelter Island. Number five was continue monitoring sea level rise with regard to ferry terminals and ramp heights. Six is restore the right-of-way and the shoulder along our roadways. Access to those areas provide off-street parking as well as utility access for the community and safer pedestrian travel. Actually, it also reduces, deer car collisions because you can see, if you have a clearer shoulder, you can see the deer before they're in the road. So that's another concern. Number seven, address the pre-disaster hazard mitigation plan in search for funding. So that plan would be attached as an appendix to this. Number eight, adopt a paving schedule that's no less than 18-year paving cycle for the island's town roads so that they don't get in too much disrepair. Number nine is adopt the complete streets approach to town roads, addressing all forms of travel.
We'll expand that.
And we'll expand on that item, so it's more specific. Number 10, conduct a review of a community-wide transportation service and we'll include in that public potential for public bus. 11, where practical, always consider a smaller, more energy efficient vehicle for replacements in the town-owned fleet of vehicles. So we've been doing that. So the building department has an electric car that they use when they go out and do inspections. I believe the TCO has an electric vehicle now as well. So when they go and they do all their traffic control, they're using an electric vehicle. Item number 12 is explore a passenger-only launch service to and from Greenport to facilitate early morning travel, for example, the 4:30 jitney and late night returns. So that's a concept that's been thrown out there. And number 13, those are action items pending the WMAC input, such as placing our own regulatory buoys, such as no wake zones, or better identifying our anchorage areas. So we're waiting to get more feedback from them. They haven't had a chance to really discuss it in their meeting yet. So that's kind of a pending topic.
They go back to bicycles. You do it. But in here, we just have to seek funding for bicycle path study construction. Chamber of Commerce, consider having a Chamber of Commerce. In 1994, the plan was much more detailed and specific. And I think that the bicycling situation kind of warrants going to that. And I'll read you from the 94 plan. Create a bicycle safety task force to develop a program for safety and traffic education for visiting bicyclists, working together with both ferries, the Chamber of Commerce, as well as bicycle organizations. I think we should just adopt that and move it in.
Yeah, that's very
more
important.
specific than the smaller area.
Yes.
I like it. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah.
Hold that.
Let's face it, the fewer cars, the more bicycles, I think ultimately better for the island.
Yeah.
You know, less ferry lines, I mean, it's just the.
For the entire
All right.
I have a general question. Yes. Having been through the previous couple of plan meetings and votes and what have you. Assuming this plan is like complete, let's say a year, whatever your time frame is, then is it the intention to revise and modify the building code so that it is a reflection of the new comprehensive plan?
Building code?
Well, that would be the next step.
The town
is
code.
Oh, the town code.
To redo, yes. So once the comprehensive plan would be adopted, then it would be a whole nother step where then you start to, you know, pick high priority items and then you would start looking at them in depth and then reviewing codes.
That then 2008 would happen. I remember I have the institutional memory. So I don't get a sense though that I think all this is terrific. I mean, how serious do you think the town is going to be to then take the time, let's say a year, to make whatever revisions they need to make in the town code and really get something passed?
Well, you wouldn't make the changes in the code before you passed the comprehensive plan.
I understand.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I got confused. After, yeah.
But I remember when this was done, 15 years ago, and they made all the revisions. I know all the people that worked on it, as I know, Lily knows them, and nothing ever happened.
No, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I think
A
things.
little was done.
Yeah, well, part of what, and I'm picturing in this plan is at the end, kind of having an implementation section on how we would then act on the new comprehensive plan, what the next steps would be, and kind of like a timeline. And also I'd like, once we have a full picture, having like a ranking of priorities for the town board to address. And then I'd also like to build in like an annual review of the comprehensive plan that would say, okay, what goals are we looking at? What's been achieved? And so that it is an actual living, working document, because I think historically it hasn't, it may have started off that way, but then it fizzles out. So I want to kind of make sure that in that document somewhere, there's a reoccurring review, like an annual review.
And a timetable.
Yes.
That's a report out to the community
Also just-
progress. That would be in order.
Timetable is key.
Yes. But again, these are suggestions. I mean, I don't think it can be binding.
I didn't say that.
No, I know. I'm just saying. I get the.
But I have the institutional memory of what's preceded, all this great hard work, and I'd hate to see it not be fulfilled.
A 2008 plan, which was excellent, in which we fought on heavily, was not even passed.
It wasn't adopted.
It was not adopted.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, different admin.
So Meg,
Yes.
I have a question about how did, so we're discussing here, people have comments and so forth, how those comments will be reflected in the chapters we just discussed and posted again?
Yes.
And then, so once all the chapters are developed, after all the discussions, what's the process of adoption? Is that just a town board vote, 5 people?
Well, what we'll do is, hopefully at that point, the public has weighed in on every chapter and we've had comments. And then once the entire document is complete, we'll have, one more public work session or however many it seems to be. If we have them and nobody's showing up, then we're going to think, okay, so we have a document, and then at that point, then it would go to the town board for a vote. Once it's been thoroughly vetted at each stage, once the chapters have been reviewed, corrections and edits been made, posted once again, reviewed again. I mean, it's not going to be just like, this isn't it. We're not done with these chapters now.
I think you're asking, I believe, I'm sorry.
I was going to say.
I think there's a question as to whether people can, so to speak, tune in and see whether the changes reflect what they've been trying to say.
Oh, yeah. We'll announce when a new draft has been posted and we'll have them dated so that you know that it's the newest.
So my follow-up question is, would the board consider putting the completed plan for voluntarily for a referendum, general population?
I would have to bring that up to the entire board. That's not a decision I can make unilaterally.
I understand that. What do you think? What do you think? No.
Just kidding. No, I mean, it's worth consideration.
Yeah.
Was your question also the timetable to get to the final comprehensive plan? Were you asking
Well,
that question as
part of
well?
the question.
Okay.
That's why I said about a year.
Right.
2 years.
Okay.
And then after that's done, length of time, because I remember 10 years ago how long
Right.
it took to make the modifications and all the people that worked hard on making those revisions,
Mhm.
and then it wasn't adopted. So a time frame, I think, is very critical.
We still. I wanted to make sure I understood your question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, and so part of the answer, Jan, is that I still need to look at, I have to go back to the state code because they have a whole procedure for how you adopt, and I have to nail that down. I've been focused on
Yeah.
this bit, but yeah.
Let's just assume for a second that there is no state requirement for a referendum. Which I think is the case.
There is not.
Right, I don't believe there
Green
was. but-
flag
Mhm.
would they completed comprehensive plan to pay for a referendum on a voluntary basis, and if general population does disagree with it, then the board should take this into consideration.
Okay.
Because otherwise, it's just 10 people working on I mean, no disrespect, but it's just 10 people
Right.
and 2 board members working on it, and
Mhm.
general population might have other ideas.
Okay. I'll bring it up to the board and see what they think.
And just so you know, I had to call the town 3 times this afternoon to find out where this meeting was, because it didn't say in the paper. Didn't identify the physical location.
Oh, it didn't say town hall and on Zoom?
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
And they gave me an email address that didn't work for me to email a certain person. And I emailed them, kept bouncing back.
People made mistakes today? Goodness.
No, it's good to know. I appreciate
Yeah,
that. We'll
it's
make
good to
sure
know.
it's corrected for the next time. Yeah,
Come and you want to-
absolutely.
No, we
Yep.
definitely do.
Yep.
There's no
Thank you.
question.
About 6 other people, none of them knew about this meeting.
Okay.
Well, there was an ad in the paper. We did put posters up.
Didn't say Zoom.
Oh, yes, it's,
That's just a fact.
no, it said so.
Paper in the community calendar.
In the community calendar? Okay.
This is what was in the reporter.
Right, we don't control
Right.
that, but we placed an ad.
But it doesn't,
It says town hall and available on.
So the
In
community
person at the
calendar
town
hasn't been
hall.
updated with that information. So I'll make sure that for the next meeting we have it is on
Well,
the.
for us seniors, we need all the help we can get.
Well, and we'll try to give you a bit more notice too next time.
Yeah.
I think
Right,
that's
so
very
if we can
important.
put the subsequent dates out there, just, and obviously those of you who came, thank you so much, and those of you who participated in Zoom, and hopefully you've all had a good experience, so please share this with your friends and neighbors, so that next time we have even more people participate. Pardon me?
Popcorn.
I'm a big popcorn fan.
I mean,
so maybe I'll make some.
I can just say to add to this, Petra, the input has been so valuable, really valuable. We really want you to participate and attend and to tell more of your friends to do it.
The next meeting is August 20th.
Everybody knows the summer is
August
very
20th.
hectic. There's
Okay.
multiple activities every day. So we keep communicating with people, they're gonna put a big star next to the gate.
Right.
Cancel all their other commitments.
Yeah.
August 20th.
Karen, what are you
August
talking
20th.
about this? Community calendar?
Is that it, August 20th?
August 20th is the Green Expo. We'll have a
And
table
where's
there.
that?
This is the newspaper.
Oh, yes, during the Green
You know,
Expo.
seniors, you said it's very
That's the weekend.
calendar.
Yes.
Nobody seems to understand that, just these young people do.
No, just so we can try to, they'll just accept, yeah.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
So the next opportunity that we're going to have really to just collect more information from the public is going to be at the Green Expo on August 20th. We're going to have a table so people can come and talk about these chapters, about upcoming chapters, and really just kind of bend our ear and collect information. So that's from, I think, 11 to 3 on the 20th, and it'll be in the lawn of the Legion. And anybody and everybody can stop by, and we'll have information on the website and, you know, things like that. But that'll just be another informal way for you guys to come and give us information and, you know, make suggestions and things like that. And then we'll be scheduling another meeting like this one in the future. There is another housing, so last weekend, and a busy whirlwind. The Community Housing Fund Advisory Board has been working on a housing plan for the town. So their next meeting is coming up again in August. Do you have the date of that? August 6th. And that'll be at the Presbyterian Church. So kind of keep your ear out for that, because that is a plan that, you know, we'll also be looking at with the comprehensive plan. So
Housing plan becomes the comprehensive plan, housing plan.
it gets incorporated into the
Can you
chapter.
repeat that? I'm sorry.
The housing plan that we're working on, that the town is working on, but specifically the committee CHFAB, that plan that gets developed with the help of consultants becomes the housing chapter in the comprehensive plan. By law.
It becomes incorporated.
Yeah,
into the
so
chapter.
if people have an opinion on housing, you should start to attend those meetings.
Right.
Yeah, they, you know, and we want all the input we can get. I mean, they're the ones who are working with the consultants to develop the plan. So, you know, they're the experts in this specific forum. We don't have the expertise.
So what's the relationship between the housing plan and the referendum?
So let me explain, because there is a difference. So the community housing plan is a plan for housing, potential housing on the island. It's going to look at all the things. It looks at, you know, accessory dwelling units. It looks at, you know, all the potential ways to create or support housing opportunities on the island. Fred Thiel has a 0.5% transfer tax proposition on the November ballot. And that fund would only be allowed to go towards community housing programs. So in order to utilize that fund in any way, should it be approved, you have to have a housing plan. So it's also best practice for your community to have a housing plan, which is why we're trying to establish one.
However, I do not believe that the housing plan that's adopted by the consultant hired to make the housing plan is to be incorporated into our comprehensive plan. We have a different mission.
No, it's actually in the state. Yeah. The state code says that it's, so just like we have the hazard mitigation plan. So that's adopted as an appendix to the comprehensive plan. So the housing plan would be adopted as an appendix to the comprehensive plan. So it's part of the whole housing chapter. It's not, you know, because it'll have most of the data.
But that's separate from the referendum.
But the days,
yes, yeah, that's separate from the referendum. They're all separate and distinct.
it's an appendix. It's not the recommendations and action items of the housing. You've said it's several things. You've also said it's the housing chapter. This is not my understanding of the mission of the comprehensive plan. May I say this? And we talked about this last meeting, that we felt that our purview was more general and broader, whereas the housing plan, which may be a marvelous plan, I am not criticizing it, is the remit is to create this and do it. Whereas our mission is broader. It's to consider the variety of issues involved in developing more housing on this island, including resource capacity.
Right. Okay.
Again, I just want to clarify, you said that the New York State Code requires that the housing plan be in the comprehensive plan?
That'd be included in the plan.
As an appendix or as the actual findings of the committee that's not part of it? Because that makes no sense from.
I'll find the code and we'll bring it up on Monday at our comprehensive plan meeting this upcoming Monday.
Yeah.
I'll have it for everybody so you can see it. Because I don't have it in front of me at the moment and I don't want to dig. I'm not sure where it went. All right, so back to transportation. Does anybody else have additional comments on the transportation chapter? All comments can be submitted to us online through the comments comments button. So if you go to the town website, you put committees, comprehensive plan. It's very easy to do. Hit the button, it'll pop up. You tell what chapter you want to comment on, put your information in, and it comes directly to us. You can also email us, but
Could you say
the comments
your email
button is
address? I've already been on that site and it's a little confusing to me. I honestly don't want to learn one new platform.
That's okay.
You just give me your email.
M. Larson at Shelter Island Town.
That's spelled out.
Yep. .us, I believe. Larson with an E. Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's on, it's on the town page. You click government and we're all up there.
I've been to the site. I don't want to learn another platform.
Okay. It's busy. There's a lot on there. I get it.
Yeah, and it's not so easy for everybody, particularly your senior population that aren't computer savvy.
I know.
I'm pretty computer savvy. I don't think it's a well-designed site. It's confusing to me.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. There are no more comments.
I want to thank you for your time and all your hard work.
Thanks. I was just going to thank you guys for your time. Thank you for coming and participating.
We're going to give a party.
Very important, very
It's a
important.
lot of very good input. Please feel free to add more comments, send them to us. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.